Good afternoon again, everybody. Today I've called you here to discuss the hazardous material response that we have at the location of the derailment site. And I will go through the event for you so that you understand what we have going on currently. This still is an active scene. At approximately 1:36 this afternoon, during the offloading process of the first tank car containing the hazardous material, cyclohexanone, contracted workers were disconnecting the hose and were splashed with the liquid. 2 workers were exposed to the liquid, one to his face and the other to his chest. Both workers were immediately removed from the area, and gross decontamination was conducted by the contractors on site. It is protocol of the contractors to have a decontamination area already established before beginning operations. The 2 workers were moved to a tent for medical treatment as the hazardous material assignment was called for. A total of a first alarm hazardous material assignment has been called for with a medical component. A hot zone was established immediately, which in our terms means that we clear the area and we isolate any type of entry into that immediate area for safety precautions. At 2:34, it was confirmed the leak had stopped by hazardous material specialist, with no more than 10 gallons being released onto a dirt area around the tank. Metering was conducted by hazardous material crews, and levels were confirmed to be well below the 8-hour permissible exposure limits. We continue to monitor and support these operations as it continues to be an active incident. The status of the 2 workers is as follows. The worker who had the liquid splashed onto his face is a 50-year-old male who was transported to local burn unit with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. The second worker on scene that had the item splashed onto his chest received treatment on scene and refused further transportation to the hospital for further evaluation. The tank car that was being offloaded was one of the cars that had been involved in the derailment and the collapse. Due to this new incident, light rail operations have been stopped around the area affected for the next hour to hour and a half. That is the current information that I have going on with our hazardous material response. I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have about this incident or any other updates you might have questions about. So actually, this is now an antiquated picture. What happened is they actually were able to yesterday upright all of those tank cars, and they were able to move them out of that location onto a dirt area just south of that location. So all tanks had been uprighted yesterday and were moved off to the south side onto a dirt area, and that actual area had been cleaned up significantly prior to this event occurring. We will try to get you some images that we can send to your various local news stations so you have those. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what they do is they have a hose that's connected from the tank car, and then that hose goes over to the actual other car that it will be going into for transportation. During this operation, per reports, is that the worker had gone to disconnect the hose from the tank car, and that they heard a pop or a loud boom, and a vapor was released, the liquid splashed their face. So we're not sure if it was due to increased heat that we have in Arizona temperatures. We're not sure the actual cause of what caused that, maybe overpressurization or what it might be, but during that twisting of the cap and releasing is when the fluid was splashed onto the face.
And how much fluid are we talking on the face? You mentioned the burn unit, but if you can survive, are we talking first degree, third degree burn? How much is it?
We're not sure exactly how much of the is actual a burn. Anytime we have a liquid like this, we like to be overcautious because there is potential for any type of chemical to cause a chemical burn. I don't know at this time whether or not we have first degree, second degree, or third degree burns, or if it's more because of the chemical agent that he was transported to that unit as a precaution, because they also do other items with liquids.
Could he see when he was
Yes, he could. So he was able to talk to our responders. We were able to flush his eyes out with normal saline, which is the fluids that we use in IVs. So it's a very clean fluid. So we did do a very thorough flush of his eyes prior to transporting, and he was able to see, was talking with our folks.
I mean, you guys only have so many investigators. You're already dealing with this massive incident, and now you have this happen. How much is this going to capture your budget?
You know, we continue to respond to whatever emergency has been out here. It seems to be, they are trying the system as much as possible right now, but the fortunate thing with our automatic aid partners is that we have a tremendous amount of resources within the valley, and our partners work very well together, so we continue to respond to these calls and take them each time they come in. So we've been very fortunate that our partners are here to support us. We support them when they have incidents in their cities. So together, we've been working together to address each of these issues as they come along. They're contracted workers that were assisting the offload, and I don't know exactly which company they're for. We can try to get that information for you. To my knowledge, they were wearing the proper PPE, and I'm not sure exactly what they had on their face specifically. I do know that they had Nomex on and the proper PPE that would be required. They might have still had some skin showing that would cause that to occur. I will have to get that information for you. I know I have it in one of my other sets of notes how they were doing the process, but it was a closed process that they were doing. So there was some error that was associated with it, but I would have to get additional information for you.
So what's the status of the chemical spill now? I mean, is it all cleaned up? What do you still have to do? Is there a risk of this happening again?
So currently, the chemical spill has been contained. The leak has stopped. Like I said, less than 10 gallons have been dispersed onto that soil below. And right now, they are transferring the product from the overflow vehicle back into the tank car, and then they will reevaluate the situation and start again with the process in the future. So this was the first of the 3 tank cars. There's a total of 3 tank cars that need to be offloaded still in the future.
And I know it leaks 500 gallons on Wednesday. What's happening with that?
So that continues to be evaluated by the environmental services. So at that time, Arizona Department of Environmental Quality has taken over jurisdiction, and then the City of Tempe folks, as well as EPA and other partners, are working with them to do various sampling and have a sampling plan in place for the long term. So that will continue to occur over the next at least week or two to have a sampling plan and take samples of not only that specific area, but also the area down in the dry riverbed. The biggest danger with this chemical actually is the vapor and the ignition temperature. It does have the ability to be an irritant on the skin. So most of the problem with the liquid when it comes in contact with a person is it's an irritant. And so for us, the biggest hazard really is the vapor and the ignition temperature at 111 degrees. So that's our concern in making sure that we don't have any type of ignition source. We try to keep the area as cool as possible and that we contain it as quickly as possible. Yeah, the temperatures right now are not in our favor when it comes to this chemical, so we're very cautious about that. We're also cautious about making sure that the workers that are out on the job site are getting the proper rest, proper hydration, and that they're getting the proper work-rest cycles in place so that they can be safe as well. So that is something that we're contending with, not only with this chemical, but also with just the work, the amount of work that's being done on the site in these temperatures is tremendous. And so we're really trying to make sure they stay hydrated, they're not getting overheated, and that they're getting the proper rest during their work. We have quite a few. I would say we're at least 100 workers out there between the various companies that are contracted and working together. I don't have a set number. Again, we can try to get that for you as this proceeds. Well, with this type of incident, this slows down the progress, obviously, so we will have to reevaluate and really see what that time frame will be, because things were progressing quite quickly, and now we have to slow down the operations and really make sure that things are done safely and that we don't have another incident like this occur in the future. So this will slow down the operation. Before, we were 1 to 2 weeks, maybe 3, to try to get things cleaned up and out of the way. And this will slow things down as we start to move forward. We want to make sure it's done safely. I think what you're going to see when you look at who's responsible for making adjustments or making sure things are done safely is the entire incident management team will come together and make sure that as we proceed, that we have all the safeguards in place to make sure that this doesn't occur again.
Have you guys gotten any indication from Union Pacific whether A, they'll pay for this, or B, they plan to rebuild the bridge?
I know with conversations with Union Pacific, and that was stated in a press conference, I believe, yesterday, that they did have every intention of rebuilding the bridge. So I can affirm that based on what was stated yesterday in the press conference. As for cost recovery, that's something that is still in discussions with multiple partners.
Any idea how long that guy who's in the hospital right now will be there?
That's going to be based on what they find when the doctors are able to evaluate them and just make sure. It could be simply as a precaution that we take the safest measures to take him to a burn center and that they evaluate him and release him later. I just don't have that information. Unfortunately, I wasn't able there to see the injuries and treat him myself, but we're hopeful that he has a very quick recovery and is able to get released soon. I believe most of the contractors that we have are from out of state, but I'm not positive on that one, unfortunately. We do have a lot of folks that are from in-state, out of state, so who it is, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I don't have a definite time frame, so don't hold me to it. But I would say this will slow down our operations just because it's one more event that we've unfortunately had to deal with. And again, we're trying to do everything as safely as possible and get things in place and cleaned up as soon as possible. But as we get events like this, it just really slows down our progress, and it makes us want to make sure that moving forward, this doesn't occur again. All of our members, yes, are doing well. We have no injuries of our firefighters. They were exposed at the same time, so one was standing behind the other when this occurred.
I want to ask you one more question about the 500 gallons. You said it's being monitored right now, but will that be pumped out? Will you let it seep into the ground? Will it be evaporate? What's the plan with that?
So based on the time frame, the assumption, and I am going to say assumption because I'm not an expert when it comes to this chemical and what properties it does with our soil, but based on the time frame and where it would have gone down into the drain or it would have seeped down into the soil already. So we continue to have water on that area. Just we're trying to keep the dust production down as well. And so I don't have a definitive answer. That's why we continue to sample, because we just don't know the long-term effects of the environment and this fluid or this liquid in our environment. And I think that's something that we have to look at. I mean, that's not something that I can speak to, unfortunately. That's definitely way above my pay grade and my position. So that's something that needs to be determined by various officials, whether that's a possibility or not. Any other questions? Thank you guys so much for coming. We appreciate it.